Does anyone want to do that?
I can do that.
Sweet. Awesome. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay. Our dear Heavenly Father, we are thankful that we could be together for this class, and we are thankful that we could be able to talk about this case study and help us that we can have a good discussion today, and that we can have our thoughts be together, and that we can have a great discussion, and that the Spirit will be with us when we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Sarah. Okay,
You're welcome.
So, yeah. So, like a brief synopsis of the case would be, we have like we have the NHL, right? And we have the league and what do they call it?
Players Association.
The union.
Yeah, the union. That's what they keep calling it. I can never remember that. And so then they're not getting an agreement on how this, like the regulations on their financial. How would you describe that? Their financial. What do they call it?
Woes.
Their financial woes. Okay, we use that word. Yeah, they're like arguing about that. So that's kind of the smallest gist I can give of it. Okay.
Well,
so
they're arguing about the collective bargaining agreement.
Right. Exactly. That's what it's called. The CBA or something. Okay, so let's see. So the very first question that we need to talk about is, what do you see as the root cause of the problems identified in the case?
Money.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty much sports in general, is money.
Yeah, I think the biggest pull is that the athletes want to get paid. You know, they want to make as much as they can, get paid as much as they can, say it however you want. But the owners of the teams, they want to make as much money as they can. I mean, both groups, in my opinion, have the same goal. The problem is there's a limited amount of resource. And so it gets, it becomes a tug of war.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
That's a good photo. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so the next one after that is, how would you describe the culture of the NHL, its strengths and its weaknesses?
I think this is a strength and a weakness, but they've experienced a lot of growth recently within the case study. I think it was a 700% growth had been in there. And so with that, it's good because they're growing, so the need for the however, they've never been this big, so they're now coming up with problems that they never have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I think that's their strength, and their weakness would definitely be like they are growing, which is fantastic, but the thing is with that growth is coming all of this problem with the money and like who said it about the limited resources?
Me. Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin. Okay, yeah. So there's limited resource. Yeah. Okay. Man, you guys summed this up really well. Okay. So do you guys remember what BATNA is?
Yeah. It's the best alternative. Basically, it's the best alternative solution, or I don't remember what the T is, but it's the best alternative to other than what you want to get. Other than what both people want, it's the best alternative next to that.
Right. Good. Okay, so the next question, it just says, I don't know if this is exactly what it says. It says, what are the best ways to strengthen a BATNA? So I don't know if that's asking specifically about this case, but we could talk about both, like what's the best ways to strengthen just in general a BATNA, and then specifically we could talk about this case. So what do you guys think?
Well, in my opinion, you have to, I don't know. In my opinion, you have to also, besides knowing what you want when you go into a negotiation, you have to know what the other people want. And you have to go into it. That's one of the things that I think was the major problem. Both sides went in thinking that this is a battle. And when you go in thinking of it like a war, you already have both lost. Because it's not a war. A negotiation isn't a war. It's really when you go in, you should think of it like a collaboration of a way to problem solve. And they didn't think of it like that. They thought of it like winners and losers. And when that happens, you both lose.
I think you're completely right.
You have to know what the other person wants. You have to know what you want. And then you have to really try to be flexible in how to get to a goal that's going to make it a win-win for so that everyone can be happy, even if you don't get exactly what you want, so that everyone can be happy when you walk away.
Right. Yeah, I think that's important. I really like what you said about how if you go into it looking at like it's a battle, then you've already lost. I really like that. That's awesome. Okay, awesome. So we can see that specifically in this case that they definitely went into it looking like it was a battle. They already had some like bad attitudes towards each other. It probably just wasn't, like a good setup either way. Okay, so the next one is, do you guys remember what like the ZOPA is?
Yeah, so that's like the range of your negotiation. So like your top dollar, what you want from the deal, and then your walk away point. Like I won't go anywhere below that point. And so that's what your ZOPA is your range as far as like what you're willing to take and give.
Right. Yeah. Good. I always think of when I was reading it, I thought of like, what are those two circles that kind of cross over, and then there's like that happy middle called?
The Venn diagram?
Yeah, Venn diagram. So that's kind of like what I'm thinking on this, like that there's like, that's what I thought of when I read that. But yeah. Okay, so the next question is it possible to change another person's SOPA? Why or why not?
Sure you can.
Right.
Because because you can always offer them something else that they might want. So for instance, if you know that for instance, if you're selling, like you're going to sell somebody a sewing machine,
right,
for instance, and they're only willing to pay $300 for it, but it's worth more than that, and you want to sell it for $500 or whatever, but if they are willing to throw something else in that you want, so like you want the $500, but you're willing to take the $300 because because he has this spiffy camera that he doesn't really want anyway, and you are looking for that, and you wanted one, so he's willing to throw that in, and you're willing to accept the $300 if he throws in the camera, and whatever, or something else, you know. I mean, you can always figure out a way to make it work. You can always figure out a way to change someone's, you know, viewpoint or whatever. I mean, not necessarily change it, but sort of bend it a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I think that when people like get down to like their needs, there's always a way to kind of overlap it. Like, okay, well, this is where we need to be heard, and this is where we need to be heard. Where can we fit it in? And honestly, with this case study, I kind of feel like that was kind of the problem, is that they weren't willing to like throw in, you know what I'm saying? Like what you were saying, they weren't willing to throw in something that covered the wants of somebody else.
Well, here's the thing. What I think is that if you read it really carefully, because I went through really careful, and I wrote down play by play, everything that happened, counter by counter offer by offer by counter offer, response by counter response. And I looked at it, and I also did some research outside of that. And I looked at the history, and I looked at like how hockey started and how they were treated at the beginning.
What crap, Sarah.
And I wanted to know, because some of the things, frankly, like some of the stuff that they were talking about, I didn't understand.
Right.
I didn't understand why some of this stuff mattered. So I wanted to know why it mattered. And then once I, you know, started looking stuff up, I was like, okay, I see now. And then, but they didn't have any problems literally until this guy, Bettman, got hired on to be the commissioner. They never had a lockout until he got hired. And then they had 4 of them after he, well, let's see, 1, 2, no, 3, I'm sorry. And he asked for them to do a voluntary, in 98, 99, he asked for them to do a voluntary renegotiation before their contract, before their CBA was up. And they said no. Mm-hmm. And that's when he made a threat against them that they'd better be ready to make concessions when the 04-05 CBA came up, because they didn't, do what he wanted. So already he had made a threat before the 04-05, CBA. So, there's history. And he was also part of the 2012 lockout. So
really, he was in 2012 as well.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
So this guy, like, I looked at like his reputation and how many of these he was a part of, and he was in every single one, and he just keeps wanting to get more money for the team owners. And when I looked at it too, it's like, okay, here's the team owners. They're asking for salary caps. They're asking for the players to get less money. But at the same time, they're the ones paying the salary to the players. It's like they're shooting themselves in the foot. Why are they doing that?
Yeah, it's like that's like their employees. That's how they're making the money.
They're paying them the money, and then on the other hand, they're crying about it. So I don't understand. I mean, I just don't understand. On the one hand, they're the one paying them. They're the one doing it. They're the one overpaying them. They're the one going against the CBA and going around the rules.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It just, to me, I was like, no wonder the players are like, no, we're gonna, we got to stand up for ourselves, because every single time you guys try to take advantage.
Right.
So I don't know. There's just a lot of history. And if you look at it just this case study and don't look at all the stuff around, you know, you might think, oh, the players are just being greedy.
Right.
But that's not really, you know, all there is to look at. So.
Huh. Well, good job on the research there and going above and beyond. That changes the game a little bit.
It's just it's just me being curious. I just
that's good.
You know. Anyway.
Oh yeah, no, that's perfect. Great. Did anyone else have any comments about changing another person's SOPA? Or I'm not. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
I think it's all been said. Kind of just offer something better that's non-tangible, maybe more vacation time. But on a NHL team, you don't really get that option. So you got to play when the games are played. So
yeah.
Try to find non-tangible things that won't hurt the financials too much.
Oh, that's smart. Okay, good. All right, awesome. So it says, so we talked about the barriers in like the write-up or whatever, and it says, what barriers would you seek to remove and how specifically?
So, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the NHL is located in New York, ?
Mm-hmm.
And the NHLPA is located in Montreal or Canada somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing that I talked about or hit on a little bit was just the fact that you've added another curveball by adding different cultures. And not that like Canada and the United States are super different, but they are different, and there's different mindsets and there's different norms. And so that makes, you know, in a difficult situation, it just adds one more stumbling block.
Right. Yeah. Well, and if you notice, over 75% of the players or whatever, anyway, over half of the players are Canadian. Well over half.
Does it ever say what percentage of the owners are, you know, Canadian versus from the United States versus something else?
No, but it does say that most of them are billionaires already. So.
Yeah. That'd be an interesting fact to compare.
That would be good. That would actually be really interesting.
So.
That would be actually quite interesting to see that. Okay, awesome. So that's smart, that barrier. I think something that I would kind of add, well, something that I was thinking of the barriers, so I was specifically thinking about like the psychological barriers. What do you guys think about the psychological barriers there? Just wondering.
Well, I think that one of the things that I noticed that Bettman used several times was that he would use the media to basically make it look like the players were being greedy. So it look like they're to the media and to the fans that it's just them being, you know, being greedy, and that's why the lockout happened. And I think a lot of times people misunderstand the lockouts are the team owners. That's not the players. It's the team owners doing it.
Right.
You know, and I think a lot of people who don't know much about hockey might not understand that. And then over the time, he would do stuff like he released that fan poll. And I think that was spin. And then let's see, what else did he do? And all of those things are kind of psychological. He released that report to the Wall Street Journal for the $300 million in losses.
Oh my, yeah.
I think that was spin. And then, let's see. And then they went and hired that guy, the former SEC guy, Securities and Exchange Commission guy. And then to do this, like, quote unquote, independent audit, but then they never told anybody that they paid the guy $250,000 to do it. And then they never told the union about it until a day before they released the report, which just makes it all look shady. And which is another, like, publicity stunt to me. And he always is doing, like, these things like that. I mean, and all of those things were, like, just, to me, they seem like, you know, mind games.
I can see where that would be a thing. That I think that you're right. And that really doesn't help build confidence at all between the two at all, because that's just, I don't know. It seems like you said. All right,
Yeah.
Good call. All right, so what would you do if you were the National Hockey League Players Association to resolve the situation?
I mean, I think they're doing it.
Yeah.
They got to keep throwing counter offers at the NHL and keep trying to, you know, fight for their money more or less.
Yeah.
Right.
And like Kevin said, they're doing it. They are. And they kept coming back. They kept coming back with more and more of a give. Like they went from a 5% rollback on their salaries. And the league just rejected their proposal and then announced the lockout immediately, didn't even consider it. And then 3 months after that, they went all the way from the 5% down to a 25% or 24% salary rollback on all existing player contracts. So they came back with, you know, they backed off quite a bit and said, hey, we're willing to go, you know, back it up even more so that we can reach some sort of agreement. And then their counter offer to that was not, oh, okay, we see that you're trying to come a little bit our way. No, it was more demands. We want a salary cap. We want no salary arbitration. We want the restructured salary. We want rollbacks to take more money away from the higher end players. I mean, they just came back with more demands, not they didn't give anything, you know?
Right.
And then when they didn't get a response in February 9th, he threatened to cancel the entire season. So he threw a threat out there, and there's another like psychological thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's like putting it out there. Okay, fine. If you're not going to do what I want, then I'll just cancel the whole thing.
And I think that goes back to the psychological barrier, like that.
Yeah.
Because also, like, these owners, like, they, from what I understood, like, they're businessmen. They don't really have a ton of love for the game. They're not going to feel super bad locking them out. But these other people, they're, like, driven also by, like, this love for the sport. And so that hurts. So they have a lot more to lose, in a way, from a lockout than the owners do.
Yeah, they do. They have families to feed, and the lockout hurts way more than just the players. It hurts the businesses in the towns. It hurts the arena people, the people who work concessions, the people who work the parking attendants, the people who work in the bars in town, the people who work any of the businesses that get all of the influx of the people who come into town when the games happen. All of those people lose all their businesses get lost. All that money that they would normally get they lose it. And they don't care, because for the team owners, this is not their main income. Most of them are billionaires. This is a side deal for them. It's a hobby. They can afford to just blow it. They don't really care that much. This is a game.
Right.
It's like not a big deal.
They're not losing very much because they still probably are having other ways to get money because they're
Yeah.
billionaires.
So, but for the players, this is a big deal. They love the game. And, to them, it's like, we've been pushed around by the owners enough. And we're the ones out there on the ice, doing the show, making the fans happy, getting our, butts kicked, getting the puck in the face,
Right.
getting slammed up against the wall, getting the bloody nose or whatever it is.
Right.
Getting in the fights, because hockey is a pretty dangerous game. But, they're the ones out there doing the work.
Right.
And they should get paid. They should get compensated for a good portion of what's made.
Right.
I would want to if it was me out there doing the work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, with that though, so what they're doing, so we agree that like they need to keep throwing the like saying what they want. They need to be firm in it.
Yeah.
So the next question is, do you guys think that's gonna work, and why or why not?
I think it'll work, because they can't have an NHL without the hockey players.
Sure.
Right.
Then it said the NHL they said the players were kind of bummed because they really want to play the game. They enjoy playing the game. So
Yeah.
I think getting paid anything to enjoy what you do is a pretty sweet deal. But so it's kind of win-win for both of them if the NHL players play and if they can come to an agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna play the other side. It says, what would you do if you were the NHL in order to resolve the situation?
Take my pull out of my keister and stop being such a jerk.
I mean, they have a lot of the power. I mean,
Yeah,
they're the
they
ones
do.
that can say, "Hey, it's season's over, game over."
Yeah.
But I agree with Sarah. I think they got to give more. I mean, you can't expect the NHLPA to be the only ones giving or compromising.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
And if and the thing is if he would, if I get it, the whole thing is to come to an agreement so that both sides are happy. But if he would, not just say it's my way or the highway, and if he could try to just bend a little and come their way a little, and try to make it halfway to them, then it would work. But he just wants to win at all costs.
here's an off the wall crazy scheme. They could recruit entire new teams, pull people from beginner leagues or like feeder teams. I don't know how, but it would be like 700 plus players, right? So it's a crap ton of hockey people. But I'm sure there's high school, college hockey players that are like, "You're gonna give me a shot? Heck yeah, I'll take it."
That's actually a good idea.
Yeah, here's what I don't know: how many fans would be like, "Oh, this is like a crap game. It's just a bunch of college kids playing. I want to watch the pros." It would be interesting to
see
fake it, simulate it, yeah, to see how many customers would actually go and pay for tickets and support teams.
Yeah, I think that's actually like kind of a cool idea. Something else I was kind of thinking of is like, let's say that the owners aren't as bad as we're thinking they are. Maybe like what they're saying, like they do need that much for covering all of the costs or whatever. Let's say that they're not as bad as we think. I was thinking something that they could do to kind of reestablish trust is instead of have them themselves hire, because when they did that whole investigating thing, they hired someone out of their own like choice.
Pocket.
They picked who they wanted to. They paid them the way they wanted to. I think that it would have been good for them to say, okay, well, you guys have this distrust in us. How about you guys go find an investigator? He can come and he can look at everything. Like we'll give him everything that we have, and he can do everything.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
And here's the thing: is that there was a Forbes study done. I did my research again. There was a Forbes study done, and they found in the study that I don't know what it is. They reported like 233, or I don't know what they reported in here, 200 and something million that they were losing, 270 or something million that they were losing in that year. And Forbes had done a study to show that it was more around the number of 123, and that they had said that the players were getting 75% or 76% of the revenues, and that number was really more closer to 66%. And so even with the Forbes study of just the numbers that they could come up with, because the owners don't have to report because they're private entities. They don't have to give any of the real numbers. They can give what they want.
Right.
So they can just give whatever numbers they want to give. So if that's the case, how would you ever know that they're telling you the truth? Or how would you ever know that those numbers are actually correct?
Right.
So there's reasons why they're skeptical. I would be skeptical, especially since if you can count seats and you know how much each seat costs, and you can count how many games there are, and then you can use a calculator, and then you add it all up and it's coming out to way more than what they're calculating, then and it doesn't make sense, then
right.
I mean, that seems to me that's like, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, there's kind of like
it's sketchy,
just hidden thing. Yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so awesome. So going back to what was it, Kevin that said this about his solution was that try to take rookie players or college kids kind of. Do you guys think that would work? Why or why not?
It would work. There was a guy on it was the guy who got in trouble. What
was his name? The coach or the
he's the Atlanta Thrashers guy. Steve Belkin, page 7. He broke the gag order or whatever, is that right?
Yeah.
And then he said that they would get what did he say? He said that, what did he say? I don't remember. He said something about getting people. He told the newspaper something about that the next year they were considering getting replacement players. There you go. And then he got in trouble for that because they were not supposed to talk about anything. But yeah, they obviously consider that.
Yeah.
So Kevin is definitely, you know, I mean,
Do you think it'd work?
they obviously thought about that. Oh, sure. I think it would. I mean, I don't know if they'd make the same amount of money or whatever, but
I think eventually they could. Like, people get kind of crazy about college stuff, almost to the point that it's more so.
I think you said an interesting word there, that eventually it would work. And I think that's the key. It would be a slow, painful, teeth-pulling process that until the fans buy in that these new guys, these new kids, the rookies are legit and they're fun to watch. I mean, there's going to be a kind of a lull, you know, lower revenues for a while, but eventually, like you're saying, it'll pick back up. They'll be fine. And I think at that point, even some of the people that are part of the union will start saying, look, I want to play and I want to get paid. And so you'll get some of the pros back.
Right.
So I think it would work. I think it would be slow.
Like, really, if the pros really wanted to, they could make another league, kind of. Like, they could find a way to make a different league.
Thanks.
That's a good idea. Never thought of that. They could.
They could leave, like, they could quit, and then they could just start playing and make, like, a different league. Like, it would be rough.
Huh. Yeah.
It would start out probably really, really rough, but I'm sure that there's, like, people who would love to support them and love to see them. So
yeah, a league by players, for players, you know, it'd be an Abraham Lincoln League.
Yeah, they could call, like, out the Outlaw League or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, that might work. So that's one solution. I mean, that'd be kind of like, you know, like a breakup, but and kind of awkward.
Well, a lot of the players had gone over to European teams, because a lot of the northern countries over there play hockey, and of course Canada, you know. But yeah, a lot of the players went over there to play temporarily.
Yep. All right, awesome. Okay, so this is kind of a weird question, but it's on our list of questions, and it says, what gospel concepts are pertinent in this case?
Oh man, pride.
Seriously, though.
Yeah. Pride.
What things are in our, what is it, Zopa? Or in our BATNAs? Like, what things, you know, I don't know, movies, we'll say. Like, I've had roommates up here in Rexburg that they watch R-rated movies. I've had roommates up here in Rexburg, they're like, no, I won't even watch, like, PG-13. And it's like, to everybody, there's, I don't want to say gray areas, but there's things that you can push. What do you do on a Sunday? Maybe that's a better example. Some people do some activity, some people don't. And so those all become negotiation areas. I don't know if that's the right term, but it kind of parallels.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I think especially amongst roommates, when you have to live with someone who has different morals completely than you.
It makes it tough.
Yeah, it does make it super tough.
That kind of goes along with, like, what's the lowest you're willing to accept? Like, where do you draw the line in your behavior? What's your things that list you make of, like, I will never? They say for business majors, write a list of, like, things you'll never do, so you don't. So when those situations come up in business, which they always will, you don't cross those lines. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, smarticles. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure if I understand this next question, but I think it's kind of the same thing. It just says, are there any concept from this week's readings that pertain to this case? Oh, okay, that's talking about the readings. That's what it is. If so, what are they? So it's like the 5 dysfunctions of a team. I believe it's talking about that. I believe.
What if you threw Catherine in a room with Bettman and Goodnov?
She'd ask Bettman to leave right away.
Right.
Yeah.
Holy crap! That lady in that book though is so hardcore. Holy crap.
And
Yeah.
he'd be like, really? Really? You're asking me to leave? I don't have a problem.
Take them on a retreat first. They go on a retreat and then.
Really, me? You're asking me to leave? No, but
real,
yeah. No, yeah, they have all the dysfunctions.
Yeah, they do. Well, actually, like I feel like they're not afraid to engage in conflict, but I feel like they haven't established a barrier of trust first. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's conflicting without any trust, and I feel like that shows why that's the bottom line.
Well, their conflict isn't about the goals. Their conflict isn't about the things. It's about character and people than about
anything else.
Yeah, character and people. They're just attacking each other. They're not working on principles. And which, you know, they've gone the entirely wrong way. You don't attack people. You don't attack character. That's not the way you go at all, ever. So you have conflict over, you know, principles and, you know, concepts, you know, but not people. You don't attack people's character.
Right.
So
cool. Okay, so that's the end of our list of questions. And so the rest of the story, okay, so I kind of found the ending of what happened, and Sarah could probably give it to you better because it sounds like she read the whole thing. So I'll read out what this conclusion says, and then Sarah, if you read it, if you want to like interpret it, because it's kind of in a different language for me, but it says on July 21st, the Players Association ratified the agreement with 87% of its members voting in favor. The owners unanimously approved it the next day, officially ending the 310-day lockout. The salary cap would be adjusted each year to guarantee players 54% of national NHL revenues, and there would be also a salary floor. Player contracts are also guaranteed. The players' share will increase if revenues rise to specific benchmarks, while revenue sharing will split a pool of money from the 10 highest grossing teams among the bottom. There was a 39 million cap in place for the first year of the CBA. So that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
So it looks like both sides kind of almost got pleased. That cap still was really a lot lower than the union wanted. But
yeah.
It's interesting that the NHL voted unanimously, whereas the players only 87%. So, and just from that fact alone makes me think, okay, yeah, the NHL was more in favor than the players.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's kind of what happened, because actually another lockout happened in 2012.
Yep.
And so it looks like they weren't completely happy with that either.
Yeah.
So this might be like an ongoing problem for the NHL.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Sarah,
And
I don't know if you found anything on this, but I tried looking it up with not very much success. There's things like baseball, basketball, football, soccer.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, I looked at those too.
Everything else has similar, like what are their business models that are working, ? Versus NHL, and why does NHL suck so bad?
Yeah, I actually wondered that too. I was like, why is NFL still functioning? Why is...
Honestly, this is what I think. What I think is back when they first started out hockey, the history of it was that the owners were just really, really horrible to the players. They used to verbally abuse them and literally, like, just, it was pretty bad, the things, how they got treated. And what they did was actively at the beginning, when they went to unionize in 1957, when they went to unionize, they actively tried to make sure that they couldn't unionize. The players were punished. They demoted people. They transferred people to worse teams. They did media smears and stuff like that. And originally, the original union crumbled under the pressure because they just couldn't handle all of everything that happened. So it took 10 years after that before the union was actually established. Actually, I think it was 11 years. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it took 11 years after that before they finally had a union, and that was so that they could actually have, you know, the power to have salaries, that they could have benefits, that they could arbitrate their salaries, that they could have a little bit of more control over their own, destiny, instead of the owners having all the control, And so, it started out on the wrong foot altogether. And so I think that because it started out on the wrong foot with the owners being so darn nasty, just that trust was not there. And then when they had their first, the players had their first strike, and then shortly after that, the owners locked them out. Just the trust just broke down, and then from there it just got worse and worse all along. And the owners always refused to show their financials. They would put their numbers, but they always refused to be transparent and show their financials. And if they don't have anything to hide, why would they refuse?
Mm-hmm.
So I just think the trust just kept getting, I don't know how to say it, but not broken and broken and broken, but more and more damaged.
Up.
Yeah, all along the way. And so it never got better. It just kept getting worse. That's what I think has happened over the time. And so the relationship between the union and the NHL is just not good. And one of the
articles I found said something about like team sizes influences that, like the NBA works better than the NFL because of the rosters and the number of players on the teams. In hockey, I was surprised. I didn't realize they had such big rosters. Like, I knew they had lots of backup, but I didn't realize how big the teams could be.
Yeah, they're pretty big, but also, and I know that baseball's had one, I think they've had one strike, right? Am I right about that?
Mm-hmm. Not this year, at least, so I don't know.
No. Well, not this year, but I mean in the past, I think they had one strike where they refused to work, but they just haven't had it, and they just haven't had really they have where certain players argue about their pay with the owners or whoever, and they arbitrate or whatever, but You just don't have this kind of thing. And one of the things I was discussing with someone was, here they are, and they're arguing and saying that the hockey players are getting paid too much. And here you've got, what's this guy? One baseball player, I think it's A-Rod, and he signed a contract for what, $210 million over a 10-year period or something? I mean, you've got players who are making in the $1 million on other sports, and and in hockey, what, that's not okay? Like, you know, I mean, the other sports players are making ridiculous amounts of money. And, you know, the people, I mean, the hockey players really aren't, by comparison, making that much. So, I don't know. It's just a bad juju between the union and the thing. And I think it's just, I don't know. I've never seen a bad relationship between, you know, that same kind of thing in basketball, football, baseball, any of that. I've never seen that in any other sport.
So we can wrap up, but you were right. Baseball had like 4 or 5 strikes and lockouts. Basketball says it had 1. Soccer, this is me just Googling and seeing what, you know, what Wikipedia comes up with. Soccer, not so much. But, yeah.
What about the NFL? Have they had anything? Because I knew baseball had I know that there was one especially that was a big deal that I knew of.
NFL 1987 had 1.
Yeah.
So that's actually interesting. The majority of sports have had it at least once.
Yeah. So, I mean, but you know, it hasn't been not this much, and
yeah,
you know, and never as long. This was the longest. 300 and something days is the longest that any lockout has ever gone for any sport. So. Yeah, so
baseball
that was the longest.
had one that canceled 713 games. So that's not necessarily days, but that's how many games they canceled.
Yeah,
it's quite a bit.
Yeah, that is quite a bit. So, yeah, so I don't know, but I just don't know that I've seen any of the other sports have such a bad relationship between the union and the sports, you know, department. I don't know how you want to put that. League. There you go. League. So I don't know. Right. But then again, I haven't researched any of the other things. So it certainly was interesting, though. I got a chance to learn a lot more about hockey.
Yeah, I love hockey, so that was exciting.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
So I was like, oh, well, hockey.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that is like the gist of of all the questions. Well, not the gist. That is all the questions. But that's actually the questions, like word for word. So thanks for coming, everybody. And
thank you.
Yeah, so we will see you guys Monday. Right?
Monday.
What time on Monday?
And since I'm up on the rotation, am I sending out the Google Hangout? Is that what we're doing?
Sure, if that's easy. If you can't do it from your phone, like I can set it up and you can drive it.
Okay.
Wait, what time are we meeting at?
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for that, by the way.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock? Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. Mountain Standard Time.
Is there any interest, like if I finish my test at noon, is there any interest to do it sooner than 2 o'clock?
I think I have a test then too, but I might finish by noon as well. But yeah, if we can do it at 1, that would be cool too for me. 1 or noon.
Yeah, sounds good. Just let me know. Send an email and I'll keep an eye out.
Okay, sounds
good. But I'll
good.
set for 2 until then.
Deal.
All right,
okay.
awesome.
All right, adios.
All right, thanks, guys.
And So the recording, does whoever who has it want to send it to me and I can post it, or they can just straight up post it? I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, I'll send you the link.
Okay,
You
you're
just-
awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, you just have to list names, right?
Yep.
All right. See ya.
All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.